I started out as a multimedia intern at TNS, Necessary Stage. It was also then that I came across Paddy and this particular work, which is completely without character. And again, it's a very phenomenal work, ahead of its time. You know, it was using multimedia, it was using video projection, it was documentary drama, there was like a live internet connection where there was like internet relay chat, and this was in 1999. Yeah, so they were streaming in a video projection of the internet relay chat room and transcribing certain sections online live and soliciting for responses and questions from a virtual audience. So all this was fascinating and important pieces of Singaporean history in terms of the art scene that I felt, you know, what can I do as an artist and practitioner to keep a record or to revive or to revisit certain things that were quite seminal and important. So for Without, right, it's not a conventional theatre experience. It's more like immersive cinematic experience. The whole intention is to use documentation to recreate the presence of Paddy, you know, or hint at the presence of Paddy. So it's also inspired by Centre for Active Space, the actual space itself. There's the black box upstairs, and this is the rehearsal room. As you can see, it's kind of like a command center, and it will become kind of like a control center for the nerve center for the production itself. All the equipment and the consoles and the multimedia equipment and stuff will be located within this room, and they will be controlling the space upstairs, which is the black box space. And within the black box space, the whole intention is that there's only the projections and the audience without anybody else. And if they want to view or find out how the illusion is created, they come downstairs into this very clinical white space in juxtaposition with the very dark black box space upstairs. And they can read some of the articles, the archive that has been collected. They also can view some materials, the script. There likely will be like a projection of like photos and stuff like that. So this is more to find out information that's periphery to the actual production itself, but nonetheless very, very important. Yeah. I mean, it's tailored exactly to the space. Initially, the only thing I had in mind was it was an immersive experience based on video documentation. The idea of the separation of the technical and the illusion wasn't part of the concept until I came into the space and saw the potential of upstairs, downstairs, and this house-like structure. But then it made total sense in a way. And it's only in a space like that where certain foundations are already in place, which is this white rehearsal room space and this black box space right above it, that allows for this potential to happen. So upstairs, there are basically 3 different projection screens of hopefully, at this point in time, 4 meters by 3 meters in height. And the whole idea is that these 3 screens will be screening the documentation from Paddy's performance, but they are synced. So they are timed together and they are in cadence with each other. So one screen will probably be the main video documentation, and sometimes in each particular evening or instance there is a 2-camera setup, so there's the possibility of seeing Paddy perform the same moment that particular evening from 2 different angles. So maybe when there's an option of showing that, we'll have 2 screens, one representing each camera angle. You see here, I'm still in the process of editing, but what I plan to do is one channel is the video, the script, the slides. So I digitized all the slides. They were in 35mm slides in the carousel. So that's the multimedia of that time. And there are also some video sequences that were projected in the background. So someone else has digitized them and inserting them as one track So one channel. Then sometimes on certain evenings there was a 2-camera setup. So as you can see just now I jumped from one angle to the other angle, then I jumped back again. But ideally I didn't want that abrupt edit. So for example, like in this case, in the background is the video. So one channel, one screen. It's a 3-screen setup upstairs. One screen will be showing one perspective. The other screen will be showing the other perspective. And the third screen will be showing the multimedia. So hopefully that immersive experience will be somewhat indicative of perhaps, of course, inverted commas, authentic performance. So it's very important for me with this piece and also with the Brother Kane piece to constantly remind the audience that, hey, you might think you're watching something that is signposting to be the authentic piece, but I always want to reveal that it's still inadequate and it's still a construct. So being very transparent about this entire setup, even when you go upstairs, you would see there is a screen setup and you will see all the cables running about. That is very important for me. I want to show and screen the original footage. The audio documentation, unfortunately, does not live up to the quality of the video documentation. And how do I address that gap between the two? So the solution I came up with is that somebody would be sighted in this space, and the person would be lip syncing, sort of, for a lack of better word, or in other terms, dubbing Paddy's text live, and performing as Paddy in terms of voice. So I approach a different person for each evening of the performance. So there are 5 nights, and on each evening there will be a different person performing as the voice. And all these people that I've selected and approached and invited, and graciously they have been very enthusiastic and very supportive. All of them have some personal connection with Paddy or the play itself at one point or another. It's supposed to create the slippage. So it's supposed to constantly, again, being very Brechtian, reminding you of the construct. What you're watching a construct. But there is the possibility of getting immersed in that construct. But the voice will always be a distancing device. Yeah. Especially one of them is a female. So it'll be very interesting to see how she manifests Paddy's voice. So the 3 screens are supposed to be enveloping the audience in a way, and the thing about it, very similar to my previous production, is that the audience always has to make a choice as to where they want to locate themselves. But it's very important to give the audience the choice to decide what they want to see. But they have to decide something that they want to see, which is they can't see all 3 screens at one time because of how the screens are positioned in relation to one another. And they will always be reminded that they're not getting the complete picture. But they have to make a choice where they want to locate themselves upstairs, and so that they can get a vantage point which would be to their satisfaction. Similarly, these 2 spaces is also forcing the audience to make a choice. Do they want to locate themselves here and encounter a more conventional live presence, which is the technical crew and also somebody who's reading the script? Or do they want to locate themselves upstairs where it's a more cinematic experience with nobody except for the screens? Yeah. I asked different people and they all tell me different answers. Some of them would choose to locate themselves here, some of them would choose to locate themselves upstairs. So it's all relative, which is an encouraging thing, I think, to know that people would choose differently instead of choosing one consistently over another. You know, there are multimedia slides that go behind, and to piece together the sequence, I had to compare and contrast this documentation with the Cane Hill documentation, because certain angles they probably didn't get the multimedia projection, and there are certain black holes in both documentation when both documentations choose to go into a close-up, especially during the very emotional scene. Then you really don't know what slides will show. My struggle is, do I interpret? Because I have all the slides and they are sequenced in a certain way. They might be out of sequence over time.
but there were some slides that were not used. So do I get a choice to choose what to be inserted into this moment, or should I just leave it as a blank?